All right, everyone, Nancy Pelosi has a cunning plan for the 2020 election, and that's flipping Texas and turning it blue. I thought about this plan for a while and the ramifications, especially in a state that's large and fairly well populated, in which it leans heavily red. By about 10 points, it's a Republican state. That's, by the way, considered a swing state now. It was funny because in 2016 we saw this. They were trying to say that Georgia and Arizona were swing states. Montana's a swing state. Missouri and like Indiana and shit. And then if you look at the final results, it paints a different story. Meanwhile, the real swing states were states that had solid blue, like Michigan or Pennsylvania. So it's a tale of two realities. Here's what my reading is. Let's say the Democrats go all in on Texas. They're like, we're going to get Beto to cringe his way across the state. He'll be skateboarding, he'll be moonwalking or whatever. He's going to do stupid shit and talk about how he doesn't want a border wall like he did at his last rally, how he would tear it down. And then we're also going to astroturf people and pretend like his crowds are huge, even though his own Twitter shows that the crowds are small at his competing rally. Remember when they had that rally down there, and very briefly the media was trying to claim Beto O'Rourke had like 15,000 people at his rally and Trump's was tiny? And it was like if you actually looked at footage from the Beto O'Rourke Twitter, you knew that that wasn't actually true and that they were full of shit, but for some reason they just gobbled down this stupid story from a fake fire fighter or something that was supposedly at the venue, which I have a feeling 99% certainty wasn't actually there at all. It was funny. But yeah, they're gonna have Beto there. They'll probably send Obama down there. They'll astroturf. They'll use their media buddies to try to lie to people about like statistics to demoralize Republicans and so forth. They'll talk about how evil the wall is and how much they love immigrants, especially the illegal ones. Not so much the legal immigrants because, you know, not all of you vote Democratic, so you're bad people. And I'm thinking about all of the time and money they're going to have to pump into it because of the discrepancy. Because Texas is a leaning red state, it's an uphill battle to flip it. If they attempt to do that, doesn't that mean that there's less time, manpower, and money to spend in the Rust Belt? Now, depending on the candidate, let's say that they go with a left-wing candidate. Let's say they go with a Sanders or a Harris. I think they have an uphill battle in the Rust Belt. And as is, they're already going to have to struggle in Virginia. Virginia was a squeaker in the last election anyway, but you know, now with their entire state's Democrats' political apparatus in uproar because of blackface and Me Too and all this other shit, how are they going to defend Virginia? That would be a big one if Virginia flips. How many electoral votes they have? It's one of the big ones. It's one of the top 10, I know that. I think it's on par with like Ohio in some of these states, near Pennsylvania levels. If that flips, then it wouldn't even matter if Texas flipped in the other direction. Then you've got the problem of Florida right now being embattled completely. You've got a fight, this was mentioned the other day, you've got a fight between the Wisconsin side and the Florida side as far as where to hold like the Democrats get together, their sort of major meeting where they coordinate their candidate and stuff. The Floridians want a progressive platform, and then the Wisconsinites are like, no, stop ignoring the Rust Belt. Like the business Dems are, lose, our state again, Michigan, maybe Minnesota and stuff. I think Trump's operative strategy is simply to do what he did before, focus on the Rust Belt and also now Virginia. Those are the two places he has to focus on. Everything else, like Colorado or Nevada or Florida, okay, go to them a few times, make it evident that you care, that you go there, but tool your message towards the business Democrats. Look, the long-term Republican partisans, 99% of them will vote Republican. Trump's core fan base of populists is going to vote for Trump. It's like when people say, well, Trump is losing steam among his core fans. No, that's not going to happen because the Democrats are going to nominate one of two people because there are only two kinds of people to nominate. A very boring Biden-esque centrist. It's not going to steal any votes from Trump. Because he goes, oh yeah, I worked for Obama, by the way. That's a recipe for absorbing Republican voters. Trust me. I worked with Obama and love him to death. Or someone who's really far out there, like a Cortez-like socialist. Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris. You look at the front runners in the field. Other than Joe Biden, they're all far left. Elizabeth Warren is the so-called moderate leftist among them, and she's not going to be the nominee. She's got too much baggage. He'd crush Elizabeth Warren. Cory Booker. Cory Booker rounding out the top 5. He's not viable. Oh my God, can you imagine that fucking campaign? How funny it would be when he breaks down crying on stage, and then his eye suddenly goes sideways so that it doesn't look like he's even looking at the crowd. Optics do matter. Physical appearance does matter within politics, whether it should or not, and whether you like it or not. The Democrats are going to focus on Texas. Why don't you focus on retaining the Rust Belt? I think they're setting themselves up for the same mistake they made before. Hillary Clinton thought she had those states in the bag, and so she didn't bother campaigning there. Trump, meanwhile, is going to go to every small town community in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and hopefully Minnesota. And in Minnesota, he can also say, look, you've got this one representative, Ilhan Omar, from this state. She's totally batshit, basically. She's filled with hate. She doesn't even like Obama because she's so far left. Maybe you should reject these people. Come back to the true party of Republicans. He could flip Minnesota. There's a better chance that Trump flips Minnesota, at least looking at the metrics and trajectory right now. Barring, Trump, has a stroke or Trump, the economy collapses. Like, barring some major catastrophe, on the current trajectory, I'd give a much better chance of Trump flipping Minnesota red than the Democrats turning Texas blue. And even if they do, if Trump manages to keep the Rust Belt, he wins anyway if he flips Virginia, which is a pretty good chance. It's going to be funny to see the Democrats in Virginia try to scramble to maintain some semblance of relevancy. And then you've got Florida. You've got a fairly large expat community of Venezuelans there that Trump's already whining and dining. They talk about, felon votes or illegal voting. By the way, as an aside, something that the clickbait articles are missing. The vote by the Democratic House to allow illegals to vote is dead on arrival in the Senate, number one, and even if passed, number two, wouldn't have any bearing on national elections. This is talking about local elections. This is an attempt to prevent states and so forth from blocking localities from allowing illegal immigrants to vote in local and often non-binding ways. They already can't vote. They're not citizens of the United States. It is constitutionally impossible for the Democrats to make any form of bill or provision to allow people that are not lawful citizens of the United States to participate in national elections. It's impossible. There is no legal recourse for them. They'd literally have to call a constitutional convention. No court in the land would uphold an attempt to do so based on that fact. So stop worrying about it. It should worry you that the Democrats would advance such a proposal even for local elections, because it shows that they care more about people outside of the country than people that actually pay taxes and are meant to be defended by the government here. They don't care about, citizens of the United States or lawful residents. They only care about using these other people as expendable pawns in their elaborate political schemes. By the way, that's another reason why I think the people of Texas will reject the Democratic Party. Texas has a fairly large border with Mexico. Now, I've lived right on it, and I didn't see any real problems. Like I lived in a community that was 99% people from Mexico and never had a problem with it. I didn't see, supposedly, according to maybe the ethno-nationalists, should be overrun with crime and shit. I never really saw that. People, little kids walk around at night walking their dogs and shit because it's too hot during the day. I didn't have a problem. I actually, a funny story, just a little rant as a side. When I was down there, I was primarily wearing long sleeve black clothing all the time. Just 'cause I kind of looked a little bit cowboyish, I think. And I think people thought I was nuts or something, but it's pretty cool. I was even more gothic at the time than I am now. Now I wear Hawaiian shirts once in a while. I get to mix it up a little bit. It's like if I feel good, I wear more gothic clothing. If I'm just kind of tired or under the weather or something, I actually wear things that are more colorful, which is odd. Although I feel good most of the time. Now that I've quit drinking, I feel even better. No, the Democrats, I don't think are going to flip Texas. There's maybe a 5-10% chance that they do. And even if they do, there's better odds of Trump flipping Virginia and or Minnesota, which negates it entirely. It is true that there's a movement towards the Democrats in the southwestern quarter of the country, but that comes at the expense of the loss of power in the Rust Belt, which has way more electoral votes. Like Colorado, Nevada, some of these places, few electoral votes. Texas is the only big one. Texas and kind of Arizona. The Rust Belt has way more than that. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, those four critical states. You see Ohio and Indiana that were swing states 10 years ago are solidly red practically now. Even in Illinois, in the outlying areas, they're getting more red. That should worry the Democrats too. There's a polarization between urban and areas and rural areas, with the suburbs being the big sticking point. And that's why the country goes back and forth between the two parties at this moment. It used to be more of a state-by-state thing, or you had like the era where the Deep South was solid red and or solid blue, depending on whether it's pre or post Goldwater and Nixon. That's ended. That paradigm has ended already. That was ended by Reagan and Clinton. And now their paradigm, which sees basically the Northeast is Democrat, the West Coast is Democrat, Illinois, and then there's the marginal areas in Florida, the swing areas. That's no longer in play. The Rust Belt is looking more red, the Southwest is looking more blue. That's a function of demographics, number one, but also party policy. Number two, what will happen is demographics is going to see increasing blue movement in that area, increasing Republican sentiment in the Rust Belt, which evens out pretty much, by the way. That's why things remain competitive, until one side slacks off and falls behind the other, probably the Democrats due to their schism, and then they will reform their policies, retool it in order to become a national party again. This has happened a dozen times in the United States already. There is no permanent movement based on any form of demographic. There never will be. It's impossible within politics. We see there's never been stability in human history. So enjoy the ride, because it's going to be one. It's a roller coaster. It's really great. That's about all. Peace out.